Hello, Internet. My name is Sephias. I recently bought a book titled 1001 Video Games to Play Before You Die out of curiosity. I looked through the listings, and while it's a fairly solid book, I did see quite a few things that perplexed me. I was going to simply write a review on the book itself, but upon further reading, I realized I hadn't really played all the games that were referenced in the book. So I decided to take it one step further. I will be making one video each for every game listed within. I will play it, do some research, and give my thoughts as to its worthiness in the list. Consider this series a companion to the book itself. There's a lot of games to get through, so let's jump right into the first on the list, Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail was a computer game developed by MECC, or the Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium. Kinda get why they shortened it to an acronym. It was released to the public in 1974, but was first developed as early as 1971. The game is one of the first of what are known as edutainment games, meaning that on top of being a video game, it is also educational. However, the education should be taken with a grain of salt. You assume the role of a wagon leader guiding a party of settlers from Independence, Missouri to Willamette Valley in Oregon. You choose your lot in life, whether you are a banker, carpenter, or farmer, that are essentially in the order of how much money they have to start with. So you can essentially say they act as the difficulty settings. Beat the game as a farmer, and you'll have your final score multiplied by 3, but you'll be less likely to survive. At the start of the game, you'll need to use your starting money to purchase supplies such as oxen to pull the wagon, food, clothing, bullets to hunt, and spare parts for your wagon in the event that they break. You need to balance your money effectively depending on your profession, as you might need that money later for other services such as crossing rivers via ferry. You then proceed down the trail and occasionally stop at landmarks and rivers, the most important being the rivers in this case, as you'll need to find a way to cross them. The game will then give you information about the river, such as width and depth, and ask you to make a decision on whether to ford the river or the infamous cocking the wagon and floating it across. What this really comes down to is how deep the river is. Any more than 3 feet, and you can't ford a shallow part of it across, so your only option is to float across. But don't feel too confident, because this is a game that's all about random fuckery. Even if you take this into account, the wagon can tip randomly, and you'll lose items. During random events on the trail, a thief may steal from your wagon, and honestly, this is the best thief I've ever seen in any game. On one occasion, a thief stole 10 sets of clothing from my wagon. The problem? That includes the sets of clothes we were wearing. Either he is the greatest thief of all time, or he caught me and my wagon party during our bi-weekly orgy. Your wagon party will randomly suffer various afflictions and incidents such as snake bites and broken limbs, which you can't stop in any way. While there is a certain strategy to playing Oregon Trail, no matter how good you are, every game is essentially a dice roll. In any case, you eventually make it to Oregon and your points are tallied based on how many people are alive, and what their health state is currently, how many possessions you still have, as well as how much cash you still possess. And then the game applies a multiplier based on what profession you chose. None if banker, double if carpenter, and triple if you picked farmer. And that's about it. There is one more thing I want to talk about when it comes to this particular version, and that's hunting. It sucks. Good lord, does it suck. You essentially have this character that can only aim in sharp angles. You use 2 buttons to cycle your aiming. There's also an advanced aiming mode using the number pad. You use the spacebar to shoot, and you hit the enter key to move up a bit. This was terrible even back then, when you played it on Apple IIe in your elementary school classroom. When you do eventually get good at it, you then realize killing a buffalo is kind of a waste, because while there is a nice 800 pounds of beef in front of you, you can only carry back 100 pounds of it. Also, when you know you have enough animals shot to make the 100 pounds limit, there's no way to end the hunting minigame. You just have to wait for it to end on its own, or at least it seemed that way. I did play this version of the game as a kid in school, but it's not the version I remember the most. The game that I recall more readily was called Oregon Trail Deluxe. It was essentially a remake of the original game with color graphics and a less DOSy interface. It actually had a graphical interface and was fairly intuitive. It also added some features to the original formula. There was now 8 different professions to choose from, which still act like difficulty settings, with teacher being the hardest, having less money and no useful perks. That being said, while the money you start with is less and less as you go down the list, some professions had some special abilities that gave them an edge. Blacksmiths and carpenters are more likely to fix a wagon part if it breaks, doctors are less likely to have party members die within reason, and farmers are good at keeping oxen healthy. Also, the game provides you with stock names for your party members if you're like me and don't bother coming up with anything compelling. You then buy the stuff you need as usual and head out. The game plays pretty much the same as the original, just with better graphics and a few new things, but the core experience is exactly the same. Well, almost. You may remember I described that Oregon Trail likes to partake in something I refer to as random fuckery. Well, Oregon Trail Deluxe is the king of random fuckery. Someone will suffer a snake bite and then break their arm within days of each other. People will contract and spread diseases to each other that you can only really get from drinking pooping water. A thief will steal 6 of your oxen. You know, the usual stuff. Sometimes the game just fucking loses it and starts hitting you with random events it can't even describe. Henry? Henry what? Then Jed got sick and died, out of nowhere. He was fine 5 minutes ago, but he caught a deadly case of random fuckery, so we'll miss him. That dog misses him too. And it just keeps on going. Sarah is bitten by another snake, Henry is exhausted, then later gets measles, and may I remind you that I'm playing as the doctor. This should be happening less often as a result of that. Henry again just kind of suffers from nondescript ailment. Emily gets a fever. Henry breaks his leg, and then that. Sarah attracts another snake. Emily gets dysentery. Then both Henry and Emily with the ghost disease that I guess eventually manifests to Henry as typhoid, and Emily just gets exhausted. And honestly, I was getting so annoyed I changed the pace to grueling and the rations to meager because I really just wanted to see everyone die, which Henry died, yes, several months after I enacted this harsh policy. And guess what? We made it. I literally stopped playing the game halfway through, put it on the worst settings of travel, and still made it to Oregon. If that doesn't scream random fuckery, I don't know what does. Oregon Trail is kind of like a board game, which is hilarious because a board game of it does exist. It's a game you don't really refer to as great. It's a fond childhood memory of a different time, and despite the fact that it doesn't hold up all that well today, it's still fun to play, if you were fortunate enough to enjoy it in your youth. Though its educational qualities are a sham, it should be honored for what it did do. Begin the conversation for video games to be used as a teaching tool. Now there are lots of great educational titles, and it's a great positive for the industry to have. As the first game in this list, and for how influential it is, I would say it's definitely worthy. Did you enjoy the video? Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be making more videos like this, and if you'd like to see anything in particular, let me know. Also, do you want to play the Oregon Trail yourself? Well, you can. Both versions you saw in this video can be played on the Internet Archive as free stream titles. I have left links in the description if you're interested. Later.